Guys, so I want to sort of show you how I set ranges for each block in terms of increasing load basically on like a week 4. So basically there's a concept in powerlifting known as time to peak. So what we can basically think of that as is we have a certain amount of training that we can do productively where we're able to get stronger before we get to a point where fatigue starts to interfere with our ability to recover and adapt to that training stimulus. And for most people, that's going to be anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks is what I find on the average before people that can tolerate hard training at their maximum adaptive volumes before they need to start to have some sort of deload period to basically lower down that fatigue to make room for harder training. So I do 4-week blocks, where basically I'm building up intensity until my 4th week progressively, and sort of a ramping progressive RPE system like a wave load. Basically, the reason why I do this instead of a static RPE approach for most people is because I do think it is important to have some aspect of increasing weight, and it sort of creates like somewhere around one way for progression, because we have some really good data that basically shows that actually like really light training, like RPE like 5 to 8 is actually very stimulative of strength gains, and the main difference between a heavier weight and a lighter weight is actually fatigue, not necessarily stimulus. Now, there are some certain neurological adaptations and morphological adaptations that do happen with heavier intensities, which is why we still do need to train them as powerlifters and also just to develop the skill. So that's the main reason why I would increase the load week to week. Our RPE, or subjective effort, is it manages that fatigue and also basically allows us to hopefully end up at a higher starting spot than we would be able to have we just done like a static RPE approach of like at 8 every single week. So essentially what I do with all my athletes is I take a look at their maxes at the beginning of the block, or basically I'll track their estimated 1 rep maxes at the end of each block. So my context is pretty easy because I'm coming off of a meet, so I know that my max on squat is 534. I have a top set of 5 on my squat, and I have an 8.5 RPE. So when I'm setting a range, I like to set a range of just at that 8.5, like say like 440, or 10 pounds above that, because that tends to be like pretty accurate. If you look at all the best powerlifters like John Hack, Ed Cohn, for example, if you hear them talk about their own training, they always talk about taking these really small PRs, 5, 10 pounds on each block, and that was sort of how they were able to continually make progress. Because if you progress too fast, like you can risk some injury, and also just like thinking long term, like if you're able to add 5 pounds to your block like per month, like for each lift, like that's a lot to your total in an entire year. So that's sort of how I would basically set that thing. So what I'm going to be doing right here is basically saying, okay, so 440 is like the low end of the range. I'd be like 450 for like that, and then basically I would look back at the RPE calculator for like a week 1, for example. Now, because I was a little bit weaker coming out of this, I actually opted for about 10 pounds less because I knew that I was a little bit detrained from the meet. So start off with like 397. And then made increases there. So like, for example, if I was pacing my own progression, I would try to take as even of jumps as I possibly could between this and the 440. So for example, I would do like this, 413, 430, and that would give me a really good spot to be able to gauge my strength on this week. Say like, am I actually going to be strong enough for here? That's sort of how I sort of pace progression. Now it's important to note that, with this progression, you need to be able to adapt basically to how strong that you are on the day. Your strength could fluctuate plus or minus 3% around this range due to several factors. You got less sleep, you didn't eat as much, you overshot like your deadlift, like who knows, like there's lots of things that could contribute to it, and you need to mostly be concerned about stimulus instead of weight on the bar, and understand as long as you have the right stimulus in place, the weight on the bar will come, but you need to basically trust the stimulus and hit it accurately and try to be as close to the RPE as possible. So don't fret about like one down week or whatnot. That's sort of, but like it's gonna have a general idea roadmap. This is sort of like how you can sort of set ranges. So that's I would recommend, about 10-pound ranges towards the end of each block, going off like an estimated 1 rep max calculator, and basically you can plan your progressions like that with some realistic expectations and progressions from week to week. So hopefully this is helpful. If you guys have any questions about this, feel free to ask down in the comments below. If you guys are interested in coaching, there's also an application below. Well, I'd love to work with you and some of you guys to help you get you strong and aesthetic in just 90 days. So if you guys are interested in that, the link is down below. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.